Welcome back, everyone. You saw the title before you clicked, and it's true. We're getting rid of some topsoil and doing an official kickoff to house progress, so let's take a look at what that means. Now, I'm starting today with a little bit of layout, and admittedly, I've got the easy task while Alila is busy chipping away at one of the last trees we had to pull down to make space for the foundation. That tractor and PTO chipper are both amazing machines, but neither of them can really match how hard she works. Now, I've saved the footing drawings to my phone for easy reference and have decided to pick out an origin point to use as a common reference. In this case, I'm using the left corner of the garage as my datum. I do want to be as accurate as is reasonable where I mark for digging, but unlike when I actually start forming the footings, it's not critical to be exact. I just need to dig enough space for the forms plus a few inches. So I placed a reference stake and started to pull the tape across the intended front of the garage. Then I pulled the length and diagonal together to get my opposite corner square to the origin, and I repeated for the opposite diagonal of the garage side, and it's close enough for excavation. But making a parallel rectangle that doesn't share a front plane or a back plane takes a little bit more thinking. Now, I'm certain there are easier ways to do this, and being an engineer for my day job means I'm certainly overcomplicating it, but in the end, a third tape gives me a good enough for now staking, and from here, I just pulled a string along that series of stakes to paint a reference for excavation. Now, after spending a few minutes assisting the tree cleanup, Alila and I talked through whether we wanted to make any adjustments to the size of the house. Now is the last chance we're really going to have to do it, but we think our plan on paper translates pretty well to walking around this painted outline. I'll show a clip of that walkthrough, and if you're up for it, leave a comment down below and let me know if you would make any changes to what we're doing. All right, so we spent the morning kind of staking out and measuring some excavation lines, and now we're just got everything kind of drawn up. So we've got our entryway here, which I'll try and superimpose kind of the plan of the house. But this will be the entry, and then we go left. That would be the living room, bedroom, kitchen, back porch kind of dips in and under here. We've got our master bedroom area and our garage. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to excavate for the footings. So we're going down about 6 inches, get rid of all the organic material that we can then backfill with stone. So we'll end up kind of coming right back to approximately the same level we're at. This is all right about 617 feet, mean sea level, whatever. 617 is our benchmark, and that's what we're trying to hit. Our floodplain is 615. So we're doing that, and then we're going to be building up from there, but wanted to give a little bit of a look at the methods and procedures before I just set this thing up to time-lapse and watch me dig. We'll see how I do. With that out of the way, it's time for some humbling. Now, I've been using this excavator for some rather coarse work over the last couple of years. I was snagging roots, I was knocking over trees, digging large holes for fill material, and that all gave me a good idea of how to operate the basics of the machine, but those were very much not exercises in finesse. Now, finesse is something that is very much needed to scrape some flat-bottom trenches. But everyone starts somewhere. And for me, right here, is both very much an awakening of the realization that I have a lot to practice, but also a huge moment where building the house is really starting to feel a lot more real. Now, I'm not a professional builder, obviously, but neither am I afraid of putting in some work, making some or a lot of mistakes, and then learning how to fix those mistakes, and overall growing along the way. Now, along the lines of learning on the footing dig, I'm reminded of some things I had known but forgotten. It may not be obvious with some of these scoops, but there are pretty large chunks of concrete and even random pieces of pipe and trash getting unearthed. Now, we did call before we dug, whatever. And we know we're clear of utilities. But what we're not clear of is the fact that there were previously structures on this property. Back in the 80s, we had mobile homes in a garage barn-type structure, and then in the 90s, the barn just became a parking pad. And in the mid-aughts, the old structures were all removed, and all of this was prior to our ownership. I'll even tag the first video of this series where you can kind of see the condition of the lot when we started working on it. So as we're digging now, we're exposing a lot of the garage and barn remnants, but the silver lining is that as used and abused as this excavator was when we got it, it's not even aware of those things and really isn't a challenge to dig through at all. Rounding out day one of the weekend, I managed to do little more than mark a couple of rectangles and scrape the grass off of one of the outlines. Now, as this video moves on into day two, let's talk about what I'm really trying to accomplish. Code dictates that I need to excavate with two objectives, the first of which is removing any organic material. This is mostly grasses and roots and things that can rot away over time that would otherwise leave voids under the foundation. The second requirement is that I excavate to a minimum of 12 inches below previously undisturbed soils. Because of the way in which we intend to build up from the existing grade, I'm trying to balance meeting that requirement without over-digging. I've been told a few times that over-digging is the biggest way to waste time, fuel, and money, and I don't really like doing any of those things. Now, as I try to meet these objectives, I am hit with a couple of challenges. The first is obvious as you watch this. I don't really know the best way to do it. I've got the excavator, I've got the tractor with both a loader bucket and a box blade, and I've got a bunch of shovels. The second challenge is less obvious. Of the machines available, the excavator makes the most sense. It's got the biggest digging power and the most versatility. But it's a very heavily used machine that I got from auction, and the condition of the swing bearing on it means there's significant play in the left and right motion, as well as some slop in the body to track as I dig. And this makes what is already a skill I need to learn even harder when the machine is so loose. So, across the day, I tried all of the different buckets, blades, and attachments to see what works. And I find that for me, scraping the top layer with the excavator bucket teeth, then using the dozer blade to pile it up, and then finally switching over to the loader to move the piles is good enough for a one-man show with used equipment. Now here on day 3, I'm trying a different vantage point for the camera. I 3D printed a tree mount, and I'm going to try and capture something more of a top-down view. I haven't really been able to monetize any of these videos yet, so I'm limited on buying drones or more cameras for the time being. But let me know in the comments if there's a particular view that you find most useful to your viewing experience, and I'll work to incorporate that feedback. But as for the work of day 3, I've managed to get below pretty much all of the organic material. So I'll be using the laser level and trying to get the footings dug down to that 12-inch requirement. But this time, instead of trying to remove that soil from within the excavation, I'll just be moving it to the middle as it's mostly inorganic material that I can use as fill later on rather than trucking in a whole bunch of material. We have been working and consulting with a soil scientist, so he's been helping us understand what types of soil we're working with, and this is a viable option. On the other side of that, there's good news and bad news. And the good news is that it's mostly inorganic material. The bad news, or really I should say less good news, is that it's 90% sandy. And really this means as I look through Chapter 4 of the IRC that I'm on a lower bearing value for the soil. But I did correct myself to say that it's less good news instead of bad news, and that's because even though I need to upsize my footings to accommodate the bearing value, I'm rewarded with the fact that it's well-draining and non-expansive soil. And that means that even though we get really cold in the winter and a lot of snow coming off the lake, it's going to drain and frost heave is still a low risk. As we wrap up the first weekend of excavation for the footings, it's time to plan next steps. And that is to order up some gravel to build up the base for the footings to set on. I'll have to do some compacting of the subsoil, then adding and leveling the gravel, compacting the gravel, and then staking out a much more exact positioning for our actual construction. Now, I'm not sure when all of that's going to happen or when I'm going to get the video edited, but in the meantime, I do want to hear from you in the comments below. Did I accidentally get something right doing this? How badly did I get things wrong? But more importantly, if you don't want to leave a comment, at least like, subscribe, or maybe share this video. It might help me actually get some of that extra equipment to bring better views. But until next time, thanks for watching.